All right, so let's say you're looking at 9S7 on IXL, and it's telling you to write an equation from a graph. It says, look at this graph, and then it shows you a graph. And then after showing you this graph, it says, what is the equation of the line in slope-intercept form? So in order to be able to answer this, a few things you're going to need to know. First off, what does it mean to give the equation in slope-intercept form? Well, that's the form we've been looking at in class, y equals ax plus b, where you always have a letter a that represents the slope. You turn that into a number once you know what the slope is, and the letter b representing the y-intercept. So what you've got to do to answer this question is you've got to find out what a is, find out what b is, and then you can write the equation. Now to find out a, you got to find the slope. To find b, you got to find the y-intercept. So from looking at this graph here, I want to find the slope. The way I can do that is I can look and see, all right, let me find 2 points where I see I can get the exact coordinates of the line at these points. So I'm looking here, there's a few choices we have. You look here, but 2 good ones are right here and right here. Okay, so let me write those coordinates right there. That first one that I looked at there, coordinates there are -1 and +5. -1 and 5. Okay, and the way I could figure that out was I looked and saw, okay, x is -1 and y is +5 right here, -1 and 5. The other point I can use here, right here, I see that the coordinates are exactly 0 for x and -2 for y. So let me put that there. 0 for x and -2 for y. Now I have my 2 points. And once I have my 2 points, I decide that I'm going to designate one of them as point number 1. Let's see, will I make it this one or this one? Doesn't matter, I just got to choose one. So let me choose, this is going to be point number 1. And then this one here, I'm going to call it point number 2. Okay? The reason why it doesn't matter which one I designate is I'll get the same answer both ways. Now I'm doing all this to find the slope here, because the way that you find the slope is after you've got the coordinates of 2 points, you're going to use this formula to calculate it. y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. Okay, you're going to find out what y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1 is. You got a little line here that tells you it's this over this, which just means this divided by this. And this y2 here, by y2 I just mean y coordinate for point 2. If this is point 2, I'm looking at the y coordinate for point 2. This y1, that means y coordinate for point 1. So that's the 5 right here. X coordinate for point 2, that's I looked at point 2, I look at the x coordinate for point 2, which is 0, minus x coordinate for point 1, which is minus 1. So I use this formula and I put in the actual numbers from the points that I have here. So y2 minus y1 is going to be -2 minus 5, right? It's -2 minus 5 again just because the y coordinate for point 2, which is minus 2, minus y coordinate for point 1, which is 5, minus 2 minus 5, right? Then same thing, x2 minus x1 is going to be 0 minus -1, like that. 0 minus -1. And then I want to make sure to have it clear here that I'm dividing this by this. And now you're just doing some calculations here, some arithmetic. -2 minus 5, make sure you know your rules for adding, subtracting negatives. -2 minus 5 is -7. Up here. Actually, let me put a little equal sign in there so you know what I'm doing. And then 0 minus -1 is the same thing as 0 plus +1. And 0 plus 1, I learned a long time ago in school, is just +1 like that. So I got -7 on top and 1 on the bottom. -7 over 1, I can simplify that to just being -7. So anything over 1 is just itself, right? So my slope now I figured out is -7. That means I figured out my slope, I figured out what a is. So now I know that the final equation is going to look something like this. Y equals -7x plus b. Okay, I went from knowing that it was y equals ax plus b to now knowing it's y equals -7x plus b. I've just replaced the a with -7 because I figured out that's what the slope was. Now all that's missing to be able to write the equation for this graph is the y-intercept. I got to know what b is. But since the y-intercept is just a point on the y-axis where the line crosses the y-axis, I just look and see that my line here, this line that I'm talking about, it crosses the y-axis right here, where y is minus 2. X is 0, y is minus 2. And if the coordinates at this point are 0 and minus 2, that means the y-intercept is just that y coordinate. B equals negative 2. Okay, I figured that out just from looking at it here because I have a graph. The line crosses the y-axis at negative 2. If a is negative 7 and b is negative 2, I can now write the whole equation. Y equals negative 7x plus negative 2. I could also write it like this, which is the same thing. IXL will give it to me as right both ways, no matter how I write it. I can write both of these, okay? So that's your final answer right there. So I'm going to scroll down, I'm going to put that in, and IXL will tell me y equals negative 7x plus negative 2 is the right answer. Excellent. Okay, let me do another one real quick here. I've got a line here. I need, first things first, I need its, let me make some space here for a second. Okay. I know that I'm looking for y equals ax plus b. And I know I'm going to take 2 points and I'm going to use this formula once I get those 2 points to find the slope. Okay, let's see 2 points here. I see there's a point right here. Its coordinates are negative 70 for x, negative 20 for y. Let's write that one in right away. Negative 70 for x and negative 20 for y. Okay, so that's 1 point. And then I see I've got another point right here. 0 for x, negative 30 for y. Let me do that. 0 for x, negative 30 for y. Place that right there. Okay, got my 2 points. Now I do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Clear these away up here. So what's my y2? Let's say this is point number 2, this is point number 1. y2 minus y1 is going to be negative 30 minus negative 20. All right, that's y2 minus y1. x2 minus x1 is 0 minus negative 70. 0 minus negative 70. All right, and so it's this over that. And then I do my arithmetic here. I say negative 30 minus negative 20 is the same thing as negative 30 plus 20. Negative 30 plus 20 is going to give me negative 10. So let me write that there, negative 10. Like that. And 0 minus negative 70 is the same thing as 0 plus 70. And 0 plus 70 is just plain old 70. Put that there. Now, negative 10 over 70, I can actually reduce that to being something a little bit more manageable. I can divide both the top and the bottom by 10. I got negative 1 over 7 is going to be my slope. Negative 1 over 7. Like that. Okay. That means I've got my slope. And if I look for my y-intercept here, I just got to look, see where does the line cross it. Crosses the y-axis right at negative 30. That means that my a is negative 1 over 7 and my b is negative 30. So I can already write the equation because I know what a is and I know what b is. So y equals a, which is negative 1 over 7. I'm just going to write it like that for now, times x. And then I know that the b is negative 30. So I can say plus b, which is plus negative 30. Let me place that there. Okay, now I've got my equation, and I can just type that into IXL. Y equals negative 1 over 7x plus negative 30. I could also have written negative 1 over 7x minus 30, but like that it should give it to me. All right, hope that helps with your 9S7.